It really is a community that fosters global perspective. So Sacred Heart brings together students from all over the world, and the school doesn't just celebrate that diversity, it integrates it into daily school life. So sharing a classroom with people from different cultures helped me develop empathy and awareness that still shapes how I approach, my own work and research that I do today.
I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private and independent schools to bring you insights into school programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administration. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
So, what stood out most to me at Sacred Heart was really the way people genuinely looked out for one another. As an international student, I was far from home, but I never really once felt like I was on my own. So, in particular, like my host family quickly became more than just a place to stay. So, they were really the ones who helped me adjust to life in Canada and supported me through my hard weeks, celebrated my milestones like their own. And at school, teachers weren't just instructors, so they were also the adults in my life who paid attention, and who noticed when I was struggling and who consistently encouraged me to keep going. So I feel like that consistent support, both in and outside the classroom, really made a lasting difference for me, and that's what I appreciated the most. So the school community felt grounded in mutual respect and care. So you didn't have to fit this specific mold to be really seen or valued. So Sacred Heart's culture was really one where you could grow at your own pace, but never really feel like you were growing alone. So values like, service, compassion, and accountability weren't just taught. They really came across in how students treated each other or how staff handled challenges and how everyone showed up for school-wide events, for example. So it was definitely a place where people listened, where empathy wasn't performative, and where doing well also meant doing good. So the leadership at Sacred Heart stood out for how personal and attentive it was. So what I appreciated the most that was that this head of the school at the time that I was there didn't just know our names. Like she really took the time to know who we were, we know what we cared about, how we were doing, both academically and personally. So I feel like that sense of being seen made a real difference for me, especially, as an international student far from home. Um, the leadership team was consistently present, not just during like bigger events or assemblies, but you will see them in just day-to-day school life. They listened carefully, responded fairly, and handled issues with both firmness and compassion. So I think their presence really created a school environment that felt safe and deeply supportive. And that kind of leadership instilled trust, not just in the administration, but in the overall culture of the school. So academically, the school prepared me well for this big jump to university. So the AP, or the Advanced Placement Program, really gave me a strong foundation, especially in the math and the sciences. And I remember I still referred to some of my high school notes in my first year courses. So that really shows how well it was taught back then. So the class sizes were very small, so you couldn't like hide, but that also meant you got a lot of personalized feedback, regular check-ins, and I feel like a space to really ask the questions without feeling self-conscious. Um, while the course offerings were, I would say, more limited compared to bigger schools, what we did have was solid. So the quality of instruction made up for the smaller catalog of electives. So other schools may offer IB, for example, for I guess a more broader interdisciplinary experience, but I never really felt academically underprepared in the AP program. And I feel like the school's structured and focused approach really helped me build strong study habits that I still rely on in grad school today. So extracurriculars at Sacred Heart were open and welcoming, even to students just trying something new for the first time. Um, Personally, I joined both the senior school musical and cross-country running, which were two activities that I've never imagined doing before coming to Sacred Heart. So there was definitely room for both skill development and just having fun. So you didn't need to be the best to participate. And I really appreciated that like low barrier approach. So events were often like student led or teacher supported in a way that made you feel your involvement mattered. And the range of clubs wasn't endless either, but students were encouraged to create new ones based on interest. And the focus was definitely more on participation rather than competition, which made it easier to try new things without really the pressure of performance. The teachers were hands down what I remember most vividly and fondly about my Sacred Heart experience. So they were deeply invested in both our learning and overall well-being. So as someone far from family, I've really found myself turning to teachers for guidance, reassurance, and like mentorship. And they showed up. And whether that may be in the form of offering encouragement during tough exam periods or writing recommendation letters or even like simply checking in when they sensed something was off, their presence really extended far beyond the classroom. So a few of them directly played a role in inspiring my interest in science and chemistry. So I think those were interests that I've carried forward in my current, career, my current research. And so they were not just there for to teach a curriculum. They were teaching us how to think, how to reflect, and, how to persevere. So I feel like that level of commitment still shapes how I approach my academic and professional challenges today. So students at Sacred Heart came from very different backgrounds. So either that may be like culturally, economically, and personally. I've said before, the international program brought in students from all over the world, and those differences really showed up in, just the languages we spoke or the holidays we celebrated, but also in like the perspectives that we shared in class. So some students came from local families with long ties to the school. They've been there since day one, while others, like me, were new to the country and adjusting to this whole new way of life. So I feel like that mix really created an environment where we were constantly learning from one another. But despite those differences, there were also some clear commonalities. So most students shared this strong sense of responsibility and treated others with kindness. And everyone I knew really took their work seriously. So people respected those who contribute to the community, who showed leadership and who offered support to others. So those I feel like shared values, respect, empathy, a willingness to grow. Those really tied us together and made the school community feel cohesive. What made student life unique was how closely everything was connected. So, because of the smaller size of the school, you couldn't really just disappear into the crowd. but that also meant that people noticed you when you weren't doing well or when you were doing well and responded. So teachers, friends, and even like staff would always check in on you. And that way the community felt very tightly woven, and that gave a certain rhythm to daily life. So student life wasn't loud or overly event driven, but it was consistent and safe, and you knew what to expect and who to turn to if you needed help. And I feel like that level of reliability created a sense of calm that made it much easier to focus on your own growth. So being located in downtown Halifax really gave us a lot of flexibility. I remember I used to eat my lunches at the public gardens because it's just right in front of our school, or even take walks near the waterfront when I needed a break. It's like a 10-minute walk from the campus. So I feel like the area or Halifax in general felt safe, well connected, but with the bus system there and never really isolating, maybe a little bit during the winters, but I feel like that's true for a lot of Canadian cities. But it felt like being in a city without being overwhelmed by it. So the school itself, it definitely had character. It was older, it's beautiful, yeah, but it's very well maintained. So the classrooms, for let's say, or science labs or common areas were functional and they were clean. And one thing, though, one downside of being in the city was not having a large open space or large open field, for example, because outdoor space was more limited being in the city. So while the gyms that we had were very well equipped and we had access to other facilities offsite when needed. So if we were to run like bigger events, we had access to parks or whatnot. I feel like having a dedicated green space on campus could have added like another layer to student life, especially during spring and fall when you want to spend a lot of your time outside when it's nice out. The home stay program was, I would say, one of the most important parts of my experience at Sacred Heart. So my host family wasn't just like hosting me, they really truly cared for me. And they helped me navigate everything from like my first Canadian winter to say until the end, to the university applications and career decisions. So they came to my school events. I would ask them to read my essays or homework, and they really made space for both celebrations and I guess homesickness. So their home really felt like mine, and they were very instrumental in helping me settle into life in Canada. So even now, I keep in touch with them, and we've remained a part of each other's lives. So I feel like that kind of support made all the difference, especially in my first year when I just arrived here in Canada. I remember it being more conversational than formal. As an international student, I expected it to feel intimidating. And some parts of me was thinking like, oh, did ask me like math questions or science questions. But the admissions team really took the time to get to know me and not just my grades or achievements, but who I was and why I was interested in Sacred Heart. So I feel like that really set the tone for what followed. And it felt like they were trying to understand if the school was right for me and not just if I was right for the school. And I felt like that approach really stayed consistent throughout my years there. I guess the first reason that I would say was the incredible teachers and the support that you get from them. So the teachers at Sacred Heart were truly invested in their students. So they really took the time to understand who each person was. They're much more than just a learner. So they really encouraged us, and they were very into like attention to detail and mentorship, which really helped me succeed academically. But and more importantly, I feel like they really shaped the kind of person that I've become today. The second point is the strong international student program. So the homestay experience was really central to my transition to life in Canada. So my host family gave me the emotional and practical support that I needed to thrive in a new environment. Combined with the EAL, so English as an additional language program, and frequent international student outings, Sacred Heart really created a space where students from all backgrounds could feel at home and succeed. And with that, the third point is kind of related to the second one is it really is a community that fosters global perspective. So Sacred Heart brings together students from all over the world, and the school doesn't just celebrate that diversity, it integrates it into daily school life. So sharing a classroom with people from different cultures helped me develop empathy and awareness that still shapes how I approach, my own work and research that I do today. And it really is a place that teaches you to see beyond yourself and engage meaningfully with the world.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.